All right, YouTube, it's time to put the rear axles in and upgrade the rear brakes to the 4-piston Brembo. So let's do this. We are going to run these Moser 33 spline axles in our 12-bolt rear end. I'm going to use this backing plate and parking brake assembly that I picked up from Big Brake Upgrade. They are not a sponsor, but they're a good company. When I ordered this, initially I ordered it for a 10-bolt rear end, but we upgraded to a 12-bolt BOP rear end. So we're going to have to use this bracket on the right side and install it and swap it out with a bracket on the left side. When you look at the bracket that holds the axle into the rear end, you'll notice that the top bolts are further apart than the bottom bolts. On the BOP rear ends, this is what holds the axle into the rear end. It doesn't have a C-clip like the regular 10 and 12 bolt GM axles. So a good tip that Scott, the owner of Big Brake Upgrade, gave us was to make sure that the bracket fits over the bearing on the axle, because when they get powder coated, sometimes the powder coating is too thick on the edge. So you gotta sand it down so that way it clears the bearing, and then you'll be able to install it easier. So as you can see, ours did not fit because of the powder coating. So we're gonna go ahead and sand some of this powder coating off. You can use a Dremel as well to get rid of this powder coating. We went down to bare metal on the inside, and then after that it fit perfectly. So now that we know it fits, we're gonna transfer all this hardware over. We're basically swapping out this bracket over to the new bracket. So we're gonna want the bracket for the brake cable to be facing towards the front of the vehicle, and we want the caliper mount to be on the rear of the vehicle. So mock it up to your rear axle to make sure you have the right side or the correct side of the bracket. So this is obviously the passenger, the passenger side. So once you figure out the orientation of the backing plate and the parking brake, we're going to install the correct bracket. Now remember, on this bracket that we're installing, this new one, there's 2 bolts on top that are wider and 2 bolts on bottom that are closer together. So we need to make sure we put that on the right side. And the 2 big bolts on the bottom, those go to the parking brake bracket. So make sure that's that you're putting the new bracket into the correct side. So if you watched my videos before, you notice I like to use Loctite, and the red one, I use it when I want things to not come apart like for a long time. And then the blue one I use for things I want to not come apart unless I'm ready to take them apart. So on this one, we're going to use red Loctite. 272 is the part number. So it's only like 5 or 6 volts to transfer it over. So I'm going to go ahead and speed this up. Now you don't have to do this if you order the correct bracket for your setup. But like I said before, I went from a 10 bolt built to a 12 bolt BOP built. So that's why I'm switching the bracket over. So remember, guys, we are doing a BOP rear end, which bolts on to the end, and that's how it holds on the axles. This is not the standard 10 or 12 bolt GM axle where you use C-clips. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to install the seal on the end that keeps the oil from leaking out the side. Our rear end came with these T-bolts, which is nice because you just slide them into the back, and then when you're torquing them down, you don't have to worry about the back end spinning. So we're going to put all these in place before we put the backing plate on. So once we put the backing plate on, we want to make sure that the 2 bolts that are widest apart are going to go toward the top. So this horseshoe piece right here, this is what holds the axle bearing into the axle housing. So now we're going to slide the axle into the axle housing. So those 4 T-bolts, that's what the U-shaped bracket bolts onto with nuts. So once we slide the axle in, we're going to slide that U-shaped bracket up, slide it onto those bolts, and then bolt it down. So you'll notice this hole here on the axle. This hole is designed to give us access to run a socket through there and tighten down those nuts on the T-bolts. So I'll put a little bit of Loctite on the nut, but you don't have to since you do have a lock washer. So I use a magnet to hold on the lock washer, and then I pushed it onto each T-nut or T-bolt, and then I started screwing in the nuts by hand, and then I just rotated the axle to line up the holes, line up that hole to the nut, and then tighten it in with a socket. So now we're going to do the same thing to the driver's side, and it should be a snap, but we're going to just fast forward through all this footage. So remember, the top two bolts are a little bit wider than the bottom two bolts. So if you put it on backwards like I am here, you will notice it doesn't fit. So you got to make sure that you flip it around. The top bolts are wider, and then your caliper bracket should be towards the rear of the vehicle, and your parking brake on the inside should be facing towards the front of the vehicle, and then it should fit them pretty easy. So for this kit, we are using these rotors from AC Delco, and here's a part number for them. We got them from Rock Auto. That's the cheapest prices we found. So as you can see, these rotors are massive, and we're using the 4-piston Brembos in the back. Now the Brembos, they come in different colors and different part numbers, but they're the same rear caliper. So I just bought the cheapest one, which were these blue ones. And then we had them powdered, or actually we had them stripped down, and then I painted them Chevy orange, and I bought these little Brembo stickers off of Amazon. So this is a finished product. I still need to put the brake pads and the brake hoses in, but let me know what y'all think. And next up, we're going to do the front brakes to 6-piston Brembos. And don't forget, guys, if you want to support me, check out my website, pick up some merch. We just dropped these new shirts this weekend, so let me know what y'all think. Don't forget to subscribe, and I'll see you guys in the next video.